What is the biggest issue with this 3-4 49ers team? They've been favored in every game. They've only won 3 of them. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. Grant, first of all, did you lose weight? I mean, did you get a haircut? Looking good, looking sharp. I just want to throw that out there before
Wow,
I
that's a good
Here
answer so
comes
far.
the bullshit. Here we go.
Yeah. I just wanted to throw that. I mean, if we're doing a contest and all, I just wanted to let you know, like, she's looking sharp, brother.
Loving your answer so far.
Yeah, perfect. See, guys, take suit. The biggest problem with the 49ers this year, Grant, to me, is simply that they got old overnight. This happens. I mean, we've seen this happen with dynasties across all sports for many, many years. Really, to me, they've held on a year too long. That's what we're looking at. We're looking at a team that thought they could make another run at this. They stripped away talent year after year after year in depth, and now they're paying the price for it. Most of your superstars on this team, especially on offense, are aging. You've got Deebo Samuel. I know I've heard Coach say this. I know I've heard Ryan say this. He's more like a running back. He ages more like a running back the way that he plays, and he's on the other side of 28. You've got Christian McCaffrey, who is 28, which means he's at that age cliff where running backs tend to fall off. You've got George Kittle on the other side of 30. And so you're looking at a team that is just simply aged and can't hang on. This is a team that is not only older, but they have also been through many, many wars. A lot of these guys have been in long postseasons year after year after year, and it just takes a toll on your body. So you've got mental fatigue, you've got physical fatigue, and you've just got the age factor. The drop-off is never pretty for teams. I almost said dynasties, but they haven't won a Super Bowl. But the drop-off is never pretty for teams like this. And when it happens, it's swift and it's unforgiving. And that's what we're seeing with the San Francisco 49ers.
Okay, who wants to go next?
I'll go, if you don't mind.
I love it.
For me, it's coaching, and not just coaching, but personnel with coaching, organizational members as well. We've had a lot of guys leave this organization, whether it be offensive staff, passing coordinators that turned into offensive coordinators that turned into head coaches, defensive coordinators who do the same and the like. We've had assistant front office personnel go off to other teams and not only kind of take what we do and put it in other organizations, but to be empowered to be a little bit more gregarious or bigger in their own spaces, right? I could see Adam Peters doing exactly what he wants to do with Washington. And in my eyes, we just haven't replaced the developmental side of what the coaching staff brings us. If you look at the guys that we've brought in later in the draft, those guys are what's sticking. Those guys are what are our best players now. These are the players that show the most viability of what we have. And when I look at that, I don't see the coaching staff when I look at late drafts doing well and actually sticking around. I look at organizationally, that's what we already have that precedes Kyle. Right? That's not necessarily the coaching staff that he has already in the building. Also, if you just look at it, just look at this season, right? We haven't beat any good teams, right? We haven't beat any teams. The last team that we beat was the Seattle Seahawks, who just squeaked out a win themselves. But a Patriots win and a head coach in Gerard Mayo, who flat out said that we are a soft football team on last week's loss that they've had, and a loss to the Vikings, who we've seen to be class personified, but also found a way to lose against the Lions, who we have to see later on this week. Let's just be honest. When we talk about all of the players that we've ever had on this team, most of those guys are still here. But it was the coaching who decided to get rid of the depth of this team. All right. It was the guys who understood that, hey, we can lose all of these guys and not replace them. Okay. Let's look at what we've had right now. What is beating us right now? It's not players. We're not getting beat by juggernaut offenses. We're not getting beat by teams that look like the Eagles of 2019 or 2022 or big juggernaut teams where it's just like, how are we going to beat these guys? If you look at it, there's not a lot of teams in the NFL that really replicate what we were at our best. You don't have teams with that embarrassment of riches around. How we're getting beat is by coaching. You know how we're losing? We're losing by having the worst special teams in the NFL. That's how we're losing. You know how we're losing? We're losing because every time we have a loss, we can count at least 1 to 2 special teams blunders that turns the tide of the game. And then when we come in and face a team that we know in the Kansas City Chiefs, who do we face? What's the best of what they do? It's not Andy Reid. They got the best special teams coach in the NFL. And that's what came back to beat us. It's the fact that these guys aren't developing the boys that we've had. We all watched film. I just got finished watching film. That team that we faced last Sunday it wasn't a skill thing. It wasn't they're far and away just better than what we had on the field. For context, they didn't have their players. They didn't have everything they needed against us. It's the truth. We're getting out-coached week in and week out, and it starts with preparation. We saw this in camp. They weren't prepared. They weren't even beginning to be prepared. Special teams is all but an afterthought during camp on top of it. And then when we leave the Super Bowl, what's the last parting thing that we have? What do? Housekeeping. They throw Wilkes under the bus, get rid of him, replace him with the in-house Nepo baby in Sorensen. And then on top of it, for context, all of the players walk away saying that they didn't believe in the defensive game plan. Nobody knew about this. Nobody knew about the overtime rules, okay? And the only people that seem to be getting by monetarily on this team are players that are older, are not incentivized to carry and toe the line on this team, and the standard has dipped. It's the coaching.
Great answer, Coach. If I raise my hand, that means I feel like we got to go on to the next person, and it's my job to keep it moving. But that was an excellent answer, Ryan. You're the last one.
All right, saving the best for last. Grant, happy anniversary! I think we've been following each other on Twitter for 15 years now. By the way,
absolutely.
2009.
This is getting unreal, bro. I got to find some personal shit to bring up.
Yeah, just wanted to remind you of that. Look, good answers, fellas. I thought those were great answers. And like you can honestly say, Kyle, because a lot of stuff points to Kyle. But if we're being real here, it's got to be injuries. Brandon Ayuk, torn ACL, MCL out until probably December of next year. Jordan Mason, sprained AC joint. Christian McCaffrey, bilateral Achilles. Offensive player of the year, almost MVP of the year. The best player on this offense, the most important player of this offense, hasn't even played this year. Deebo Samuel, pneumonia, just got out of the hospital, but he's been beat up this year. George Kittle, sprained foot. Will he be 100%? I don't know. These guys are getting old and beat up. Juwan Jennings, hip injury. Is he going to play? Ricky Purcell's returning from a gunshot wound. And those are just the offensive players. So there's a number of things you can point to, and most of them ultimately fall on Kyle. I get that. But the question is, what's the biggest issue? And I got to say, injury is the biggest issue.
Okay. Those were 3 excellent answers. After much thought, I'm going to give the winner of this round to Coach because he's the one guy who didn't try to butter me up with his answer. And I don't like that.
Damn.
But also, I do feel like all 3 of you guys were extremely convincing. Those are the main issues. The reason I would side with Coach is despite the Niners, they are one of the older teams in the league. Their injury issues are ridiculous, and they could be getting worse. Despite all that, they're still favored by 4.5 points this weekend. They still have random guys stepping up. And I think even against the Chiefs, they were looked at as the more talented team. And the reason they lost by 10, I don't think there's a 10-point gap between those rosters. I think it's a coaching thing. And it's not just Kyle, it's Sorensen, it's Staley. Brandon, can we take a moment on the 4-man front to acknowledge how little Brandon Staley has done for this franchise? They brought him in to be like the genius, the brains of the defense. What's one creative thing? What's one positive impact that you could possibly attribute to him?
Provocative stretch, pre-game stretching.
That's one.
Cat cows. We don't know. Do we know though? Like what's happening behind the scenes? Maybe he's responsible for how poorly they're doing.
I wonder if when people talk about on the defense, something's weird going on, if it's the Knicks. I don't want to just do irresponsible speculation.